During family brunch, my sister got the keys. I got the property empire. That's the title of my story, and honestly, it still feels surreal to say it out loud. I'm Clara, born in 1994 in a small coastal town in Maine. Back in 2016, when I graduated from college, my parents took me out for dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant. It was sweet but modest, just pasta, a shared dessert, and a brief toast about being proud of you. I smiled, grateful, not realizing how much that moment would echo years later. I felt unseen but brushed it off. Today, at 30, sitting in the same dining room where it all began, I'm finally sharing this because sometimes the things we think are losses are actually setups for grace. If you're listening, drop where you're watching from below, and don't forget to like and subscribe because this one's about how everything changed over brunch. It was a bright Sunday morning, the kind that feels like it was made for family gatherings. The smell of cinnamon rolls, brewed coffee, and sea salt drifted through our beachside home. My parents, Daniel and Marie, were hosting a brunch to celebrate my younger sister Maya's graduation. She'd just finished her MBA and was about to join Dad in the family's real estate firm. The energy in the room buzzed with pride and excitement. Everyone kept talking about how Maya's the future of the company. I sipped my coffee quietly, letting the laughter wrap around me like a blanket that didn't quite fit. When Dad stood up to make a toast, I knew something big was coming. He smiled, his voice thick with pride. "Maya," he began, "you've shown commitment, brilliance, and passion for this family's legacy. Your mother and I couldn't be prouder." He paused, glancing toward the sliding glass doors that faced the ocean. "Which is why we've decided to gift you the family's beach house. It's time for you to make it your own." Everyone clapped. Maya gasped dramatically, clutching her chest. "Oh my God, Dad, seriously?" she squealed, tears glimmering in her eyes. Mom pulled a tiny velvet pouch from her purse, dangling a set of gold keys that shimmered under the chandelier light. "These are yours now," she said, smiling like she was handing over a crown. For a second, my heart stopped. The same house where we'd spent every summer. The same one I'd helped repaint, clean, and maintain when my parents were away. The same one that felt like my second skin now gone, given away in a single sentence. I forced a smile, clapping with everyone else, my palms trembling just slightly. Maya jumped up to hug Mom and Dad, her laughter loud and clear. "Thank you so much. I can't believe this is real," she said. Then she turned to me, still glowing. "Clara, can you believe it? I got the house." I swallowed a lump that wouldn't move. "Wow, that's amazing, Maya. Congratulations," I said softly, forcing warmth into my tone. She grinned. "You can visit any time. Just, maybe call first," she teased, laughing with that playful arrogance that had always come easy for her. It wasn't the joke that hurt. It was the way everyone laughed except me. As plates clinked and chatter filled the air, I sat quietly, cutting into a piece of quiche I couldn't taste. My mind drifted to that dinner years ago when I graduated. No brunch, no gifts, no fanfare. Just me, a plate of pasta, and my parents saying, "We know you'll find your way." I did. I had built my career from the ground up, working in investment management, making decisions that brought returns even my father's firm would envy. But to them, I was still the one who didn't follow the family path. After brunch, I helped clear the table. Maya floated around, taking pictures for Instagram with captions like "Blessed New Beginnings, Family Love." Dad watched proudly while Mom beamed. I stacked the last of the dishes in the sink, rinsing off bits of scrambled egg. My Aunt June walked up behind me, lowering her voice. "You're taking it well," she said gently. I smiled faintly. "Trying to. It's her moment, right?" June nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. "Maybe so. But don't ever forget sometimes quiet hearts hold the loudest futures." Her words lingered. I didn't know why, but something in her tone felt like a secret. Later that afternoon, when everyone had gone home, I sat on the deck overlooking the sea. The waves rolled in rhythmically, whispering to the shore. Maya's laughter still echoed faintly from her new house down the path. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange mix of sadness and peace. It wasn't about jealousy, not really. It was about the quiet realization that love in our family seemed conditional, measured by usefulness. I had chosen a different path, so in their eyes, I had chosen distance. I thought of my grandparents, long gone, who'd always treated me with quiet respect. My grandfather used to say, "Clara, some gifts take time to reveal themselves. Patience is a form of wealth." At the time, I never understood what he meant. But sitting there that evening, with the sea breeze brushing my skin, I felt something stir like an old memory trying to resurface. The next few months passed quietly. Maya renovated the beach house, turning it into her personal paradise. Family dinners became shorter, calls less frequent. I buried myself in work, building my firm's portfolio, advising clients, investing wisely. Still, every holiday brought a sting, pictures of Maya's home, with captions like grateful for family tradition and thankful for our legacy. Then one day, an envelope arrived at my apartment. Heavy cream paper, embossed with the seal of a law firm I didn't recognize. My name was written in bold black ink. For a moment, I just stared at it. Something about it made my pulse quicken. I slid a finger under the flap, slowly tearing it open. Inside was a letter from the firm of Weston & Clark, requesting my presence for a family trust matter, set to be discussed on my upcoming 30th birthday. I frowned. Family trust. My parents never mentioned anything about that. Still, curiosity tugged at me. I folded the letter carefully and set it on the table, glancing out the window as rain began to fall softly against the glass. For the first time in years, I felt that same strange stirring I'd felt on the deck that day, the quiet hum of something bigger than I could yet understand. At that moment, I didn't realize it, but my life and our families was about to shift forever. My 30th birthday arrived with little celebration. I'd planned to spend the day quietly with a solo brunch, a good book, maybe a walk by the pier. I wasn't expecting a surprise party or phone calls from my parents. We'd grown distant, and honestly, peace had become my preferred gift. Still, as I walked into the office of Weston & Clark that morning, I had no idea how drastically my life was about to change. The receptionist greeted me with a polite smile. "Ms. Langford? Right this way, please. Mr. Clark is expecting you." I followed her through a long corridor lined with framed photographs of coastal estates and legal milestones. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood and old books. My heart thudded softly in my chest as she opened the door to a bright conference room overlooking the harbor. A tall man in his 60s stood by the window. "Clara Langford," he said warmly, extending his hand. "I'm Thomas Clark. Thank you for coming on such short notice." We shook hands, and he gestured for me to sit. "You're probably wondering why you're here," he said with a small smile. "This concerns your late grandparents Harold and Evelyn Langford." At the mention of their names, something inside me softened. My grandparents. I thought all their affairs were settled years ago. He nodded. "Most were. But your grandfather established a trust one that remained dormant until today, your 30th birthday. The instructions were clear. It activates when you, the eldest grandchild, turn 30. I blinked. "Wait, me? Not Maya?" "Correct. You are the designated trustee of the Langford Property Trust." For a moment, I just stared at him, my brain refusing to process the words. "I don't understand. What exactly does that mean?" He opened a folder, revealing a stack of documents, old photographs, and a sealed letter addressed in my grandfather's familiar handwriting. "It means you now have full legal authority and managerial responsibility over the Langford estate, including all residential and commercial holdings." My mouth went dry. "What holdings?" He slid a summary page toward me. My eyes scanned the list, and my heart began to race. Langford Beach House, Evergreen Mountain Cabin, Oak Ridge Plaza, Seaside Rentals, and multiple commercial complexes. The estimated total value was just under $18 million. I leaned back, speechless. This This can't be real. Mr. Clark smiled gently. It's very real. Your grandfather was deliberate in his decision. He wanted the family's future in the hands of the one he considered responsible, thoughtful, and least driven by appearances. A lump formed in my throat. He always believed in fairness, I whispered. He did, Mr. Clark said, sliding the sealed letter toward me. This might help explain his reasoning. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the wax seal. The letter was written in my grandfather's careful cursive, the ink slightly faded but strong. My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, it means you've reached 30 and hopefully learned that patience and strength often walk hand in hand. You were never loud about your accomplishments, but I saw the steadiness in your heart. This family's legacy must not be built on impulse or vanity. It must endure. As trustee, your role is not to own, but to protect. Manage the properties wisely. Ensure fairness. And never forget leadership often means standing alone. The others may not understand, but one day, they will. With love and pride. Grandfather. Tears blurred the ink before I could finish. The weight of his trust literally and emotionally settled on my shoulders. I folded the letter carefully, pressing it to my chest for a moment. So, what happens now? I asked quietly. Mr. Clark explained the next steps. The transfer of control, the required legal notices to family members, and the role I'd have in maintaining the estate's income distribution. You'll receive a modest management fee, but the assets themselves belong to the family collectively, he said. Your job is stewardship. When I walked out of that building, the sky was streaked with orange and pink. The world looked the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. I had walked in as the overlooked daughter, and walked out holding the keys to everything my family valued. That evening, I sat in my apartment surrounded by paperwork, reading through details I could hardly believe. The beach house. The same one was given to Maya just months ago. My chest tightened at the thought. How would she react? How would my parents? I didn't have to wait long to find out. The following weekend, the family gathered for brunch again, this time at my parents' house. I had requested the meeting through Mr. Clark, who insisted on being present to explain the legal side. The moment Maya saw him, her brow furrowed. "What's this about?" she asked, suspicion in her tone. Dad glanced between us. "Clara, you said it was important. What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you all. Grandpa's trust was activated on my birthday. He named me the trustee of the entire Langford estate." For a moment, silence. Then Maya laughed sharply and incredulously. "Wait, what? That's impossible. The beach house is mine." Mr. Clark cleared his throat. "Actually, under the terms of the trust, all family properties including the beach house now fall under Clara's authority as trustee. She doesn't own them personally, but she's responsible for their management." Mom's face was drained of color. "You mean, she controls everything?" "Not controls," I said quickly. "Oversees. Grandpa wanted it this way to make sure the family's assets are protected for generations. I'll still make decisions with everyone's best interest in mind." Maya's chair scraped loudly against the floor as she stood. "So you're taking back my house? The one Dad gave me." "It's not mine to take or yours to keep," I said, keeping my tone calm though my hands trembled under the table. "It belongs to the family trust now. Grandpa's rules." Her eyes filled with angry tears. "You planned this. You couldn't stand that I finally got something special." I shook my head. "Maya, I didn't even know until last week." Dad's voice rose, frustration simmering. "This doesn't make sense. Why would my father bypass me and then hand everything to you? You didn't even work in the family business." I met his gaze steadily. "Because I worked on myself. I built something from nothing." Maybe Grandpa saw that as responsibility, not defiance. For a long time, no one spoke. The air felt thick with disbelief and resentment. Finally, Mr. Clark stood, adjusting his glasses. "If I may, your father's firm and Mrs. Langford's shares remain as they are. But the properties, including the income they generate, fall under Clara's trusteeship effective immediately. The paperwork has been filed with the county registrar." Maya stormed out first, muttering under her breath. Mom followed, her face pale and unreadable. Dad stayed behind for a moment, his eyes dark with something I couldn't name: hurt, maybe pride, maybe both. "You've caused a mess, Clara," he said quietly. "You think this makes you strong, but all I see is a family divided." He walked out, leaving me alone in the echo of my own heartbeat. When I finally stepped outside, the wind off the ocean stung my eyes. I stood by my car, clutching Grandpa's letter in my jacket pocket. The word leadership often means standing alone pulsed in my memory like a heartbeat. I wasn't sure if I felt powerful or completely broken, maybe both. That night, I sat in the beach house's living room, alone for the first time since childhood. The keys Maya once flaunted now lay quietly on the coffee table beside the trust documents. I traced my fingers over the grain of the wooden floor, remembering summers spent here, barefoot and sunburned, with my grandparents laughing nearby. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like inheritance wrapped in heartbreak. I realized something then: being trusted with power doesn't always feel like winning. Sometimes, it feels like being chosen to carry the family's ghosts. The weeks after that meeting felt like walking through emotional quicksand. Every phone call from home came sharp with tension. Mom's tone was clipped. Dad spoke only when necessary. Maya didn't speak at all. The silence between us grew thick enough to suffocate. And yet, through it all, I kept reminding myself this wasn't about ego. It was about legacy. Grandpa hadn't trusted me because I was the favorite. He trusted me because I could stay steady when emotions ran wild. Still, some nights, as I lay awake in that empty beach house, I wondered if I had the strength to keep that promise. News of the trust spread faster than I expected. Extended family members reached out, some congratulating me, others hinting that maybe Grandpa's mind wasn't what it used to be. I learned quickly that money had a way of distorting memories. Cousins who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly wanted to catch up. Family friends sent messages that dripped with curiosity disguised as kindness. But nothing compared to Maya's rage. She posted cryptic quotes on social media, things like, "Not all sisters are blessings," or "Some people smile while they steal." I ignored them at first, but it stung. Then came the day she showed up at the beach house without warning. I was reviewing maintenance reports in the kitchen when I heard her voice from the doorway. "You really moved in?" I looked up, startled. "Maya, I didn't expect you." She stepped inside, eyes sharp. "You took everything. The house, the control, the attention. You always acted like you didn't care about family money, but now you're sitting here playing queen of the empire." I set my papers aside. "Maya, listen." "No, you listen." Her voice cracked. "You humiliated me. Everyone knows the beach house was mine. Now they're whispering that I didn't deserve it. Do you know what that feels like?" My chest tightened. "Yes," I said quietly. "Because I've felt it my whole life." Her eyes flickered with something, recognition, maybe guilt, but it vanished as quickly as it came. She shook her head. "You've changed, Clara. You used to be kind." "I'm still kind," I said softly. "But kindness doesn't mean silence anymore." She stared at me for a long moment, her lip trembling, then turned and walked out without another word. The door slammed behind her, leaving the air heavy with everything unspoken. That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the tide roll in under a silver moon. Grandpa's words echoed again. Leadership often means standing alone. I finally understood what he meant. Leadership wasn't about authority. It was about endurance. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding trust, not emotionally, but structurally. I hired independent auditors, modernized the property management system, and set up quarterly financial reports so every family member could see where the income went. Transparency, I hoped, would soothe what words could not. At the first family meeting after the transition, I stood before them in the same dining room where Maya had received her keys months earlier. My parents sat stiffly. Maya crossed her arms, expression unreadable. I took a breath. I know this has been difficult, I began. It wasn't my choice to create this division. But I am choosing to make sure this legacy serves everyone, not just one person. Dad's eyes narrowed. So what, now we report to you? No, I said gently. You report to the truth. The trust isn't mine. It's ours. But Grandpa made me the keeper. That means I'm accountable, not superior. Mom looked down at her clasped hands. You sound just like him, she murmured. I smiled faintly. I take that as a compliment. The meeting continued, with questions about taxes, rent income, and property upkeep. It was awkward, tense, but productive. By the end, Dad gave a reluctant nod, and even Maya stayed until the last page of the reports was reviewed. Progress is fragile, but real. Later that night, as everyone was leaving, Maya lingered by the doorway. You really believe you're doing the right thing, don't you? She asked quietly. I met her gaze. I don't just believe it, Maya. I know it. Grandpa trusted me because he saw the bigger picture. I'm trying to honor that, even if it means being misunderstood. She sighed, looking out toward the sea. You always were the calm one. Maybe that's what he saw. I didn't reply. I just watched her walk down the path toward her car, the sound of the ocean folding softly between us. Over the next few months, things began to shift. The resentment didn't vanish overnight, but it softened. Dad started calling again, sometimes to argue about investments, sometimes just to chat about the market. Mom invited me for dinner more often, her tone less guarded. And Maya, well, she still kept her distance, but every now and then, she'd text a practical question about property repairs or tenant issues. It wasn't affection, but it was a start. One afternoon, while cleaning through some of Grandpa's old files, I found another envelope tucked inside a dusty ledger. It was labeled simply, "For when things get heavy." Inside was a short note. Clara. The weight of trust will test you. When it does, remember wealth isn't measured by assets, but by the peace you leave behind. Manage the first, but guard the second. Grandpa. I smiled through the tears. He had known exactly what I'd need, not validation, but direction. I placed the note in a frame on my desk, right beside the trust papers. By the time the first fiscal year ended, the properties were thriving. Income had increased, maintenance improved, and even Maya acknowledged the progress. She eventually hosted a family brunch of her own, this time inviting me as the guest of honor. It was awkward, but she handed me a small keychain engraved with a seashell and said, "A reminder that the beach house still feels like home for both of us." That tiny gesture cracked open something inside me. Forgiveness, maybe. Now, whenever I walk through the beach house, I no longer feel like an outsider reclaiming what was denied. I feel like a steward, a bridge between the past and the future. The walls that once echoed with resentment now hum with quiet gratitude. I've learned that being chosen doesn't mean being loved more. It means being trusted to love harder, even when it hurts. Sometimes, when the waves crash against the shore and the house creaks softly at night, I imagine Grandpa sitting on the porch beside me, smiling that knowing smile. And I whisper into the wind, I get it now. Because in the end, it wasn't about property, inheritance, or power. It was about faith, the kind that builds empires not out of bricks and land, but out of trust, patience, and love that endures the storm. Moral lesson. True inheritance isn't the wealth we receive, but the responsibility we uphold. Family legacies aren't about titles or gifts, they're about patience, trust, and the courage to preserve what love once built. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one destined to carry the loudest legacy. When life gives you what others think you don't deserve, hold it with humility, not pride. Stand firm in grace, even when misunderstood. Because power fades, but integrity endures, and peace is the greatest treasure any generation can leave behind.